Hello, 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 hello. Oh, all the hair. I know so many of us are in this space of quarantine hair, quarantine nails. This is what my quarantine nails look like. It looks like just cutting my nails and all the time, really, really short. Quarantine, I don't know, skin, whatever. We're just in this state of being with our bodies in the ways that they are ever evolving without being able to go to the people who we like to have tend to them. So it's actually kind of a good analogy for what I want to what I want to talk about today. But before we dive in, as always, I want to say welcome, welcome, welcome to my little corner of the world here on the west coast of Northern California. It's 3:17 p.m. on Friday, July 31st. How the heck did that happen? July 31st. So depending on where you are watching from, it may be a very different time of day. It could even be a different day. I would love it if you would just let me know who's here and where you are watching from. What part of the world are you? I want to say calling in. It's not exactly what we're doing. There's got to be another word for this. Are you joining? What part of the world are you joining from? So that we can feel the wider web that is joining into this space and where we actually all are in space and time. So one of the really there's probably a lot of misconceptions around leadership. There's probably also a lot of different viewpoints. So I guess the other thing I'll say as we get going is that I'm always available for the questions, the comments, the shares. And while it's always really fun for me when people agree with me and think what I'm saying is so true and brilliant, I also love it when you have a different experience. If you're like, actually, I see it this way, or to me, leadership is this, or to me, that just widens the net of what actually we can talk about, what we can share about, and what the perspective of leadership can be. So by all means, whoever you are, wherever you are joining from, and again, I'd love to see, never take those earrings off. Oh, thanks. I know are these wonderful, my friend Mandy gave them to me. She surprised me. And actually, when she gave them to me, I was like it was almost too much for me. I'd put them on, I'd be like, oh my God, I can't quite deal. And I think partly as my hair's gotten longer, it's been easier for me, but also I've just started stepping into the drama that is these earrings. Thank you. Thanks for that. So I'll stop fussing with my hair because it's just not going to get any better. So one of the things, though, that I have really seen, or a place where I've seen people, I don't even want to say it's not like do it wrong, but it's almost like get stuck. A place where I see people stumble and get stuck in the area of leadership is in this area of like, if I'm in a position of leadership, if I'm going to lead, if I'm going to step into leadership, if I'm going to take on the mantle of leadership, in order to be a leader, I need to know. I need to know where we're going to go. I need to know how we're going to get there. I need to know all the things. I need to, like, there's sort of this, I could do a whole other live stream about actually what it really does take to hold all the things as a leader. But one of the places, again, where I actually see people get tripped up is imagining that they're going to need to do so much more, know so much more. I need to know the answers to all the questions. I need to know everything that's happening. I need to know, like, have it all planned out. I need to have it all planned out from, whatever I think point A is to whatever I think point Z is, and all the points in between, and we can't deviate because I have to know. And really, what there's like inside of that is, right, I have to know a lot. I have to know everything. I have to be the one juggling all the balls. Even in the realm of leadership, where I've seen people talk about that really the best leaders are the ones who aren't doing as much, right? They're orchestrating. There's a lot that's sort of tied up in that. But what I see is like still this need to know, so we can be on it. We can know all of what's happening and sort of be the one with all the balls in the air, and the capacity to juggle the most balls makes us the best leader, the most effective leader. And what I really have been sitting with lately is that I think one of the most powerful skills, one of the most powerful traits, one of the most powerful perspectives to come at leadership from actually is the capacity to hold the unknown and to walk with grace in the midst of mystery. And that can actually often occur like being all-knowing. The more capacity we have to actually sit with, I don't know. I know where we are, and I know, maybe the next step, or maybe there really is this vision, right? I do think that there's power in vision. But that's really different than knowing exactly where we're going to end up and how we're going to get there. So there's a vision that can call forward. And then there's the capacity to truly sit in the unknown of everything that will happen along the way, and all the steps that it might take along the way, and what any of that is, and who might come along for the journey and who might not, and who might go their own way. And that probably the most important thing that a leader needs to be able to hold is to hold the unknown, to hold the kind of like the wild vastness of the unknown. And I really do see that then as this, I started to write myself some notes here, and I was going to write like holding the mystery. And I thought, oh, that is too constricting. It's like walking with the mystery, or being with the mystery, the unfolding. I remember like so many years ago, probably 15 years ago, one of the very first times that I was teaching a group of people the processes of circling, in order so that they could go and lead their own circles, their own authentic relating circles, if you will, without going too deep into what that practice and process is. But really, it was one of my first, rather than just teaching people or facilitating people, it was the first time that I was stepping into the role of teaching potential teachers, or guiding potential guides, or facilitating potential facilitators, people who wanted to be able to do the work, to guide people, to lead people, to facilitate. And sitting with these two young men, I was young at the time also. And I remember I asked one of them a question, and it came, I want to say it came out of nowhere. I don't think that's really true, but it came like magic. It came from the mystery, came through the mystery. And the whole experience sort of like a fractal, there's this, can't think what they're called, there's a word for it, but there's this piece that enters a fractal so that it spins out in a different way. And it's actually what makes fractals, right? Not just like a spiral or a shape, but that they can then fractal off in these other ways, and went in this whole other direction. And then when we were deconstructing it at the end, they were like, how did you know to ask that question? I was like, I didn't. That question arose, or came in, or came through. And I, not even consciously, it wasn't like I was holding like, well, 50%, this could be like fantastic and the perfect question, and 50%, it could be totally shit. And it was just that like poof, it was the question, but I really sat in the place of that whatever response to the question was would be okay. There would be the next thing would happen, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next, and we could actually just be with it all the way through. And I think in some ways it's that it was actually that energy of the question that allowed the question to, it was the content of it, but it was also the energy behind it that allowed it to be as beautiful as it was. And that if I'd asked a question and they were like, meh, the answer is sort of meh, or it just went in like a meh way, or they're like, that actually seems totally off, which I like, just, full disclosure. And I'm sure any of you who hold spaces, facilitate, guide people, coach, whatever you want to call it, have this experience too, that you ask a question or you share something or you start to take someone in a direction and they're like, yeah, that doesn't resonate. And the more capacity we have to hold the unknown or to be with the unknown or be in the mystery, the more lightly we hold those moments so that they're like, meh, and we can just go poof, like, all right. Not like, what about over here? What about over here? It's not like scattershot, but to be able to just let something go. Or if they say like, yeah, that doesn't feel right. And we're like, yeah, I think it actually is right. Like, I get that you're saying it's not right, but actually, but there's a lightness when we're really able to sit in the unknown. There's a lightness to any direction without like, but that's the vision and I'm the leader and therefore that's where we must go. And I need to know how to get there. And that part where then, if I imagine as the leader that I have to know where we're going and how to get there and all the steps along the way, and that's just a lot of pressure. And that pressure and that weight in and of itself constrains my capacity to meet the moment. There's a running joke actually among people that I have either collaborated with, like co-taught with, or people who've come and worked as my assistants, especially at live events. I remember this one woman who was helping to assist me. She found my notebook, no, it must have been a piece of paper, because if it was a notebook, I don't think she would have opened it up. But it was like a piece of paper that I had, and she came and she was like, "Is this yours?" And I looked, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's my plan for the weekend." And she was like, and it just was sort of a, it looked like either just crazy mathematics, right? The chalkboard that, if I looked at it, I'd be like, that means nothing, or, with the lines drawn here and like one word here, and then there's a circle around this one, and, just this, and it's like that, actually then that capacity to respond to the moment, like, oh, actually I can feel where we are. And I have this sense of something, where I want to go, where I want to take people, or where they need to go, or what they came here for, or what our end result is. And then like I think there's probably we'll do this, or probably we'll do this, or this is probably the access point, or I know we're going to start here, but then some capacity to continue to respond to the moment as it arises, like, oh, poof, like this is coming up in the space. And so let's go there. And there's this real difference between sitting solidly in the seat and being able to respond in that way versus like, oh, you want to go over here? Oh, you want to go over here? Like, okay, what do you, what do all of you think? And it really makes me think of this. I had to search it out because I couldn't remember the exact wording. And I found that this quote is also potentially attributed to somebody else, but I know it as attributed to Gandhi. And that's, I don't know, like on the Google page, there were 20 hits and 19 of them attributed to Gandhi, and one was to this other philosopher. So I'm going to go with Gandhi for now. And the quote is, "There go my people. I must follow them, for I am their leader." And I can only imagine that Gandhi had powerful vision, right? People actually followed his vision. And yet his capacity to lead people was grounded in that he held them this way. There go my people. I must follow them, for I am their leader. Not I need to corral them, not, I know where we're going, but almost I need to follow them. Like they are actually the calling force. And I see that as both like there are my people and I must follow them, but that the people, like in the multitudes, right? The people will offer what is arising that in life that is needed to be followed. And as a leader, one must be able to follow what life is calling for beyond preference, beyond our plan, beyond even if it shifts from the vision, like there's probably this overlay of the vision, but even if it's like, oh, actually, wow, the people or life is showing me a vision that I couldn't even have imagined, and there must I follow. Mia said, and there's a feeling of spaciousness and time slowing a little. To me, that's when I'm present, super present with my client. I love that. Yes. My experience of that is almost like out of time, like timeless, rather than necessarily slowed per se. But it is also, I think, again, the experience I was talking about at the beginning that I think is the misconception, right? Like I need to know everything. I need to know where it is, and I need to know where we are and where we're going and how to get there and everything that's happening. That can feel very fast. Like life is happening very fast. And also often it can seem as though it's like coming at us. And then this, what you're describing more as spaciousness or time slowing down. And what I was saying is like an out of time, almost like we just like step out of time. Then it reminds me, I love the X-Men. I don't know, I actually love superheroes, but there are some superheroes that I'm more into than others, and I'm more into the X-Men than other superheroes. And there's one guy, he's not like a big player in the X-Men, but he shows up in the movies. Maybe he's the Flash. I don't know. There's a couple fast superheroes, but he's that guy who moves super, super fast in the movies. And so you see him just like moving things around, right? Like everything just like slows down, and he's just like plunk, plunk, plunk. So I think it's a little bit like that. I was pausing because I came to the end of my notes, so I was waiting to see if there was anything else that would arise, and I'll include in that anything else that feels relevant from any of you who are here to share or to ask or to add to the conversation. There's often a little lag time between Facebook Live and where the questions and comments show up. So I want to give a little bit of time and space for that. But that's what seems most relevant, that both. So I was talking to one of my mentors today, and she was talking about, I don't know where I put it, but these times when we can start to justify, argue, defend, or explain ourselves. And she made some comment. She said, oh, like, not, I'm certainly not perfect at this. And I realized as she was saying it, that for me, it's like, oh, more than, am I doing this perfectly? Like, there's no need to ever justify, argue my position, defend, or explain. But those give me these little bouncing off points that I can notice myself. I can bump up against if I'm in a conversation or I'm, something's happened. I can catch myself sort of like, oh, I'm doing a lot of explaining here, or I'm really justifying this, sometimes even just to myself, right? Like not even to another person. This happens to me a lot in the shower. I catch myself like justifying myself to myself. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's, and then I can kind of walk myself back. Like, what would it be to stand in something without justification, explanation? Anyway, that was a kind of a tangent to these two pillars, and the one side of that, not so much that we try to like never try to control or never try to know or never try to, get in this planning mode, but it can be one of those little pieces to bump up against. If I'm in that space to go like, oh, wow, I'm getting very, like I'm doing a lot of planning here, or I'm catching myself kind of thinking or imagining that I need to know everything, or that I need to, know more than all the other people in the room. And if I catch that, it's kind of a good place to go, like, oh, so how willing am I to sit with the unknown? And how connected to the mystery am I? And what might I need to do in order to bring myself back into more comfort sitting in the unknown, or more relationship with the mystery? And it used to happen. I remember actually, I used to do a lot more planning before events. And then I was thinking, as I was leading up to this this video, actually, I was thinking about one of the first times that I facilitated like a group of about 200 people, and just how much energy that was. And again, there's this whole other perspective of what it can be like to, to get wide enough to kind of hold that much space, that much energy, that many people, right? That many different perspectives, experiences, desires, and there can be this control in place. Like, okay, I have to make sure that this works for everyone, and I take every thing into consideration, and that I've got all my points ready, and I need to plan better because there's so many moving parts. And I remember when I got on stage, and I just stopped, and it was like my whole being was just vibrating, And to Mia's point earlier, right, that could be a moment to get like real fast. And luckily, I had enough practice in my belt over enough time that I intentionally, took that time to slow down and to breathe. And I looked out at that whole group. I can see it now. I can actually see the like hotel conference room I was in, and just sweeping across in this way of meeting people's eyes, like really seeing them and realizing that. And again, this is kind of a whole other video I could do, but really it was about being in relationship with them. I couldn't possibly plan for every perspective of a 200-person event. And so the best preparation I could do is actually the relaxing of that, the willingness to step into, I don't know what will arise for any of these people. There's no way I could plan for every question they would ask. There's no way I can preemptively, set everything just so that no one can argue with me, or whatever the thing is, or make sure that there's no little stumble or glitch, and rather be ready to simply meet what arises, meet the way that people are engaging with my facilitation, meet their response, and stay in actual relationship and connection to that, which requires staying in connection with the unknown, because, goodness knows with one human being, there's no way to plan their response, let alone with 200. Like, there's just no way. So it requires staying connected to the present moment and the unknown and the mystery of the unfolding in all of those interactions. I want to pause here. Thank you. Dana was saying, I was just getting out of a tough conversation with parents, thinking about the dynamics of parents to child as we age. Totally. I was having that conversation earlier today. Defending and explaining ourselves to them if they don't see us or our interests. Do good parents see their kids and their abilities, experiences, joys, etc.? This is a really interesting question. I actually have another video. I can't think what it's called. It had something to do with loving people the way they wanted to be loved, and there might be something about generosity in there, because I was really talking about relating to my son in this way. I'm also pretty sure, Dana, that you asked a question, I don't want to forget, but on a live stream the other day about one-on-one coaching, and I thought I could go back to it, but you replied on YouTube in live time, and it looks like those comments don't save, so I couldn't go back and reply to it. So I'm just going to say, it was like commercial break. You can go to my website. It's kendrakunov.com. I'm really easy to find because my name is really easy, but if you go there and you reach out to contact me, I'll get back to you. So back to this piece. So being a parent in my experience, I only have 2 kids, I've only been a parent once, as far as I know, in this lifetime, or, twice, requires an incredible amount of being with the unknown. And for me, probably one of my highest values of being a parent to my children actually is what you're talking about here in terms of seeing them and really recognizing that they are different than me, that they may want very different things, not only than I want right now, but even than I wanted as a child. And that really calls forth in me things that are not necessarily my habit, my inclination, my preference, even what I want to do or how I want to be, and this really dynamic place of honoring myself and honoring that truly who they are at the same time. So I'm not going to go down this whole rabbit hole, but I actually do think that good parenting is good leadership, and good leadership is good parenting. Those are very, very related. And so this capacity to stay connected to the unknown and the mystery and to see the arising of the human being that is one's child is essential, and it is deeply challenging, deeply, deeply challenging. So I love that share. I love that inquiry. Thank you. Linda said, I was thinking about this very topic all week, how one of my biggest fears is not having the answer if a client asks me a question during a program I've created. How I think what I offer is only of value if I know all the answers. Man, woman, girl, lady, Linda, I feel you. I have that's so a contraction that has been in my habit body. And I think it's one of the reasons actually why this is so important to me, is that this has been one of the deepest sort of unravelings of my own habit self. And I think it is a big part of what makes me a good teacher and facilitator and coach insofar as I am, is the willingness to not know and in the unknown. And I really, especially also as someone who does often have very strong opinions, to actually not offer them even when I have them. Even when my clients are asking for them, to not immediately go to I have the answer for that. Because often what comes up in that inquiry is so much deeper than if I had just given them my really amazing and brilliant answer. So I really feel you on that. Totally. And just what I love about your share too, Linda, is how much of our attention can get caught up in trying to imagine what will be the inquiries, what will be the questions, what will be the things that will come up. And then we're going to get a question that we couldn't even have planned for, and all of that energy and attention, not to say we shouldn't plan these are some typical things and this is how I want to work with this. It's not about not planning or not being prepared, but guaranteed we're going to plan for 100 different questions that are going to come up, and then someone's going to ask one that we're didn't even occur to us, so poof, how beautiful, what a beautiful opportunity to step into the unknown and the unfolding of the mystery. Do I do embodiment practices right before I lead a group? I'd say 80% of the time I do. 80% of the time. So I do a lot of, I like to dance really overly dramatically, kind of over the top. I also like to sing along really loud. I like to shake it out. I do a lot of shaking it out. I do a lot of breath. I also do, and I don't always do it right before I lead a group, but a lot of slower, following the internal movement. And so some of that is right before I'm going to teach or lead or have sessions. And then some of that is just finding that in my daily life so that it's more available to me more of the time. I also, this is little pulling back the kimono here, but I also often include that right at the beginning of a group or an experience, and that I, and I take myself along with it. Obviously, I'm also holding it and teaching it. So it's different than like going fully into it, but often I get some of that with them as well. And then Dana said, so in order to be a good parent, you have to have those established or you learn as you go. First of all, I would really dial back into that there's anything you have to do in order to be a good parent. I mean, there's definitely like a few really key things that don't lead to good parenting, you know, including like abuse and ridicule and neglect and self-absorption. And, you know, there's like the real biggies, but barring the biggies, I shy away from like should and have to and must. However, I definitely have learned as I have gone, and I think that might be the only way to parent, starting from like the very, very get-go. I mean, certainly of birthing my children, even pregnancy, but then even for people who don't birth the children that they parent, I would say, you know, it's still kind of from the get-go. What I've really seen is we can't know until we know. And people, you know, I remember when my first son was born, my first child, I only have one son, but when my first child was born, who's my son, and the sleep deprivation was like incomprehensible to me. And I remember saying to somebody like, why doesn't anybody tell you? And she's like, actually, we did. And I realized you can't know. Like people will say the sleep deprivation, you'll be like, yeah, I pulled all-nighters in college. You know, I've had insomnia for years. Like, and then you have a kid that doesn't sleep and you're like, this is a whole nother, like you literally just can't know until you know. And I found that about basically every part of parenting. I just couldn't know what being pregnant was like until I was pregnant. I couldn't know what this experience of birthing a child was like until I was birthing a child. And in fact, funny story. So then when it came close to time to give birth to my second child, I remember, so the first time around, like I actually wasn't scared. I was just like, I don't know, I felt really confident. I mean, it was intense. I didn't really know what was happening. I was open to that. I had a really hard labor with my first child. It was about 26 hours long. I had back labor. You know, anyway, there's like challenges, like, but it was a beautiful process. And I remember looking into my friend who's a midwife's eyes. I would just look at her, you know, every step of the way. And I kept saying, what do I do next? Just tell me what to do next. Which again, like talk about staying with the unknown. Like I just had I had timeless time. Like I had no idea, you know, I mean, and I really did have a lot of challenges. I couldn't keep any food down. So I was getting dehydrated. I was vomiting a lot. Like I was on all fours, like, I mean, for like 26 hours. So, but every step of the way, I just kept going like, and so what do I do next? Like, what do I do next? And meeting the moment. And so then when you know, spoiler alert, my second child was born in 2 hours and 48 minutes. And it was very intense. But when I got close, like it was like in the week before she was actually born, I just remember there was this moment where I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I have to give birth again? Like, whose idea was this? You know, I was like, oh, and I actually felt more scared than I ever felt before giving birth to my son because I knew what was coming, even though it was completely different. But there was this way, I was like, a baby is coming out of my vagina and like, I know what's coming and that is so intense. So I don't even know how I got on that, sorry. So Dana said, what I mean is having lived to a stage of mature internal ability. So in terms of parenting, I mean, I want to say that would be nice. Be nice for all of us. There are certain pieces that I don't know if it's not that I necessarily believe that we must have to have a child in order or to parent in order to reach those stages of mature internal ability. But there are sometimes I think we need to have certain kinds of life experiences in order to have them. And I want to say there's an exception to every rule, but I see it happen with people in terms of, you know, great loss. Great loss tends to bring a certain kind of maturity. there's a way that before, like people I meet who haven't really experienced great loss, there are just certain parts inside themselves they've never had to touch. And it's not like a moral failing or anything wrong with a person. It's just like, oh, you've never really known what it is to like deeply, deeply not get what you want, you know, or like really have the world fail you. And it's challenging because in some way I don't think we wish, I would never wish that on anybody. But I also see like the ego strength that often comes with that and the internal maturity. Really pushing ourselves beyond what we could ever have imagined we're capable of. I see that, you know. So I lived in a Buddhist monastery for 3 years in my early 20s, and it's not like guaranteed. I didn't necessarily see everybody at the monastery like grow up in internal maturity. But there was something about the kind of commitment that took, and the pushing oneself beyond, and the sitting still with oneself, and the meeting parts of oneself that, you know, it did have a maturing effect. So I think what I want to say is I think there are many paths to that. And, but I've also seen people that, you know, could easily be externally judged as immature, both either in age or emotionally or spiritually or however you want to say, and become parents and just like what gets called forth in them through being a parent is so beautiful and so brilliant that they mature with it. And so I would really hesitate to make some mandate that I think that one has to have done that before becoming a parent. And you know, what I want more than, and this is like a total left turn on where I started with this, but it's something I am very, very passionate about. So I wish, a deep, deep wish that I have for the world is that families and parents and children be far more supported, at least than we are in the United States. I can't really speak for other countries. Where I see that there are other social systems and other communities that hold that. But, you know, part of what happens is that all of that pressure is put on the parents, and often a lot more on the mother. And then there's no other support or systems, and it's not fair, you know. And then we say like, well, you shouldn't have had children, or, you know, you didn't build up the ego strength or have the maturity. And it's like, fuck me, you know, it's not fair. It's not fair what we ask of mothers and parents in the United States. And even though we can do it, I don't think anyone should have to. So I think I'm going to close there. And again, I'll just say that those of you who have brought your pieces into the Facebook piece, they'll still be there, so I can continue to come back and engage. If there is anything that any of you have brought into the live portion with YouTube and you want it to stay, or you want me to come back and continue that dialogue, I would say like copy and paste it into the actual YouTube video and it gets uploaded there, because I guess those comments get deleted. Again, those of you who are on Facebook already know this, but I'm easy to find on Facebook. My name is, you know, odd enough. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram. My website is kendrakunov.com. And I actually have a lot of videos and articles there, you know, like going back for the last maybe 7 years or so. And I love the dialogue. So I just feel deeply, deeply grateful right now, actually, for the depth of inquiry that was brought here that I then get to be engaged in and respond to. It's so, honestly, it's so nurturing or nourishing. It's nourishing to my heart and soul. So I appreciate that. All right. Ciao for now.